Hey, what is good, you guys? I am Jaideep and welcome back to the channel. So we are starting a brand new series called as the interview question series, and the first one is from Python. And this is the title Python interview question series. Doesn't should have named it just interview question series, but to make it more specific, it's Python interview question series. So yeah, so this series would be targeting all range of audience, but to give everyone some confidence boost, we are starting with a simple question which will most probably be asked to freshers or people who are at intermediate level or transitioning into Python from some other technology. So you can expect this question. And we have three scenarios. So the problem statement is pretty simple. If you're given two iterables, so this is a list one called sample one and list two called sample two. Given two iterables, how do we combine them so that the first element of the first iterable and the first element of second iterable and the second element of second iterable and the second element of the first iterable and the second element of the second iterable appear together. So 1030 and 2040 appear together. So this is one question. This can work for multiple iterables. We'll see that in the example or the implementation. And the second, so if you're able to answer this, most likely the follow-up question would be, what happens if one of the two iterables which you're supplying as an input is of varying variable length? So we'll see that, hence the output question mark. Probably there will be a follow-up question that if there are variable length inputs, then how to handle them, or how to assign a fill value to it, or how to assign a placeholder value to it, something like this. So instead of whatever the output of this gave us an output which looks like this, so have fill value corresponding to this extra value we have in the second iterable or any iterable. So let's go over to the implementation. Right, the implementation of this is pretty simple, and there is a built-in method which is available to make this solution. So in our sample we saw two lists, but here we have three lists. First is the list of players, football players or soccer players if you're from America, country which they belong to, and the number of goals they have scored so far in their career. Yeah, and to do that, to combine these three, so the output should be Ronaldo, Portugal 819, Messi, Argentina 790, Mbappe, France 228. So this should be the output. And to do that, simply you have to use the built-in zip method. Yeah, the zip method takes in variable number of iterables as an output and returns an iterator consisting of tuples. So if I just print this, so if I give all the iterables to the zip and print the output. So if I just print this, yeah, print this and comment this out for a minute, this should be okay. If you see, it gives me a zip object. So it gives me a zip object which is nothing but an iterator. But as I mentioned, if I convert this back to this one, and if I now print this, it gives me the expected output: Mbappe, France 228, Ronaldo, Portugal 819, Messi, Argentina 790. So basically we combined all these three elements. Yeah. So first, third, yeah. First, it's somewhere here, and second. So the output would be random because it's an iterable and it will return the values based on how it's generated. That is our first scenario answered. Moving on to the second scenario, that if one of the iterables which you're supplying as input has variable number of elements. So consider the country has one more iterable, one more value as India. Now let us run the code as it is. So let me clear this up a bit and let me run this again. So Messi, Argentina 790, Mbappe, France 228, Ronaldo, Portugal 819. Pretty much the same to what we had before. So adding an extra parameter or adding an extra value in the second iterable has not made any difference. But let me show you the Python version which I'm running this on. So it's Python 3.10, basically Python 3.10. Now Python 3.10 zip operator can take in an extra parameter called as strict, an extra argument called a strict, and if I set it to true, by default the strict is false. So it ignores any extra values in any of the iterables. But if I set it to true explicitly, and now if I run this code, okay, So now if I run this code in Python version 3.10, zip argument 2 is longer than argument 1. So argument 2 is longer than argument 1. So if we enforce a strict check, zip can then complain, but this is only applicable to version 3.10 and above. Now if I change it to version 3.9 and run the Python interpreter 3.9 and let me run this code again. If you see for version 3.9, so Python icon version, so Python 3.9.12, the zip takes no keyword arguments. So your strict check is only available for version 3.10 and above. So the output of this question is the extra element would be ignored in version 3.9 or less, in version 3.9 and less. But if you're on version 3.10 or above, what you can do is you can enforce a strict check depending on your preference, and in that case it will complain that one of the lists or one of the iterables is longer. So this output is subjective. Maybe you can write the answer as this. So depending on the version you can answer it, but by default the default behavior is to ignore this extra argument or extra value which is present. So this is the second scenario answered as well. Now let us move over to the third one. Right, and the output of this is expected is, instead of ignoring this extra value which we have in one of the iterables, depends whichever iterable it can be, you have to fill it with some value. So to do that, the answer is pretty simple, and instead of using zip, what we have to do is from iterables import zip longest and pass it zip longest, zip underscore longest, and it has a parameter called as fill value, and let's say fill value. Let's get the spelling right. And if I do a CLS and if I run this now, okay, probably run it one more time. If you see, we have this fill value India fill value, something close to what we wanted. Again, this output is random. How these tuples are returned in the order is random, but the output is always correct. If I run it one more time, maybe it will come at the last or maybe first. Instead of using zip, you have to use zip longest from iterables, and that will give you a fill value option, fill value argument to which you can pass it any value. So if I give it question mark and run this now, actually I think you cannot see the screen, so maybe yeah, this one. So if you see, I've replaced it with a question mark. So question mark, you can give any fill value. So that is the third question also answered, and the solution is longest from iterables. And maybe a little bit here, you guys can see. Or let me make this small. That was the first video in this series. It's a fairly commonly asked question. You might think, okay, this is very simple, but this is how interviews work. To get your confidence up, they'll start with simpler questions, and that is how interviews should also work. You cannot just start off with the harder questions, because that derails the whole interview process, and it might not give the candidate the desired confidence to be able to answer the question. So yeah, this is a simple but most commonly or fairly commonly asked question, and it was about the zip and the zip longest built-in methods which are available. So zip is built-in and zip longest is built in the iterables module. So yeah, that was a quick video. If you found it useful, do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, and do leave your feedback or any other questions which you'd like to be answered in the comment section, and I'll take a note of that. Thank you for watching.